Let's record yet another macro. This time I'd like to record a macro that actually hides the grid lines. So I'm going to click this button down here on my status bar, but you could also click the button Record Macro on the Developers tab, so whichever you prefer. I'm going to click this button and I'm going to name this macro Remove Grid. I'd like to give it a shortcut key combination, so I'm actually going to assign the shortcut key. Actually, no, I'm not going to assign a shortcut key. I'm not going to assign a shortcut key. I'm not going to do a description. I'm just going to keep it real simple. So I'll click OK. To remove the grids, I'm going to go to View, and I'm going to untick Grid Line. And so my grid line's disappeared. I'm then going to stop recording. If I have a look at my code, quite simply, there it is, active window display grid lines equals false, which means that no. I'll take out any excess comments. And I might want to play with changing it back to true. So I'm going to double click false and type TRUE and hit the down arrow. I'm then going to test it works. The whole idea here is I may want to use my run button. So I'm just going to move this window over a little bit so I can see both windows. If I click on this sub-procedure and I click this green triangle, or I press the key F5, I will effectively be running this code. So I'll hit the run button. You can see now my grid lines are back. If I change this back to false, and then I choose run, you can see they've gone again. What is important is that you're actually sitting in the sub-procedure. So you can't be sitting below and then hit run, because it won't know which macro to run, and so you'll encounter this. So I cancel this and make sure I'm sitting somewhere on one of those three statements. I might change it back to true, and then just press F5 or this button and run my code. So it's important to know that there is a key, it is F5, and it allows you to quickly run a sub-procedure when you happen to be sitting in that sub-procedure. And if you've got two screens in Excel, on one screen and your code on another screen, it's really handy to just be able to press F5 and run that code, especially if you haven't assigned a shortcut key, and that's why I didn't, to a particular macro. Now the other thing I want to look at is creating another macro. So let me just stretch this back and just tidy things up a bit, and I'll go back to Excel. When I click on the cell E4, when I click on the cell E4 and I look up in the formula bar, I can see there's a formula sitting in E4. In fact, that's true of pretty much everything on row 4. There are formulas there. So what I'd like to do is create a macro that actually converts the formula to values. So I drop the formulas effectively using a paste special values. So I'm going to record a macro, convert to values, and I'm going to assign the shortcut key, or aren't I? Let me just double check. Yes, I am. I'm going to assign the shortcut key, Control-Shift-V, so I'll press Shift-V, and I'll click OK. The whole idea is I'm going to right click this cell and take a copy of it. I'm going to right click this cell and do a paste special values, which is the one with the little 1, 2, 3. I can see up in my formula bar I've lost the formula and I've been left with the values, and I'll press escape to get rid of the wiggle, and I'll stop recording. So the whole idea now is I can choose one, maybe D4, and I can see there's a formula there, and I can go Control-Shift-V and it'll convert it to values, and now I can see that that's actually a cell there with a value in it. I can highlight all of these cells, for example, and press Control-Shift-V, and I've lost the formulas and been left with values. Now let's have a look at the code. If I go back to my Visual Basic Editor, here's the code here, and again I can remove any excess apostrophes and any excess comments. So looking at this particular sub-procedure, the selection, whatever that may be, is copied. The selection then has a paste special, and the type of paste it does is values. All the other options that are typically in paste special are also listed, but these all make one statement, so they're not separate statements like this earlier one where we could delete them. But what I'm really wanting to draw your attention to is the underscore here. When you record a macro and a statement starts to exceed 70 characters, the macro likes to put in a space and an underscore at an appropriate time. And this means that the next line down is actually still part of the first line. But it didn't want it to go on forever and ever to the right, because then it makes it difficult to print your code or to view your code if it's excessively long. To practice the underscore, I'm going to ask you to put some underscores into this code above the one that we've got. I'm going to keep the space that exists in front of my cursor right now and just put an underscore here. And I want to put another underscore in front of operation, another underscore in front of skip blanks. I'll remove this underscore and join it back up, just using my backspace and delete keys. And I'll put an underscore here and put that on the next line. Notice that there's no red. Red text is always a bad sign in the Visual Basic Editor, so there's no obvious errors. And if I went to test it, it should still work. So let me just dive off to Excel. Let me just select, say, D13 to H13, which have formulas in them, and press Ctrl-Shift-V, and I can see quite clearly now there's no values in those, no formulas in those cells. They are in fact values. So I know there's no obvious errors with this particular code. So if you're writing a rather long line, you might decide also at some point to put a space, put an underscore, and carry that line on the next line down, so that if we print this code, it fits nicely on a portrait piece of A4. Now the other thing you may want to do is also indent things. This sort of to some can give the impression that it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 statements, but in fact it's 3, because these statements from paste to transpose actually belong to as part of the paste special statement. What I mean here is I'm going to select these lines here, and I can press the tab key to indent them, and I can press it several times. I can press Shift Tab to bring them back. If you want to use buttons, on the Edit toolbar, which I got you to bring up earlier, are 2 buttons to indent, and it mentions the tab key, and to outdent, which mentions the Shift tab. So I can indent these and outdent these using the button. So I'm just going to use the tab key, but I think it's important to indent and outdent so that it's easy to read and to indicate what belongs to what.